I'm still buying BTC and MSTR strategy. Both are assets that are high quality, but are hated by everyone. And Marc, that comes on today, is exactly a proponent of that. Buy high quality assets that are laying on the ground and getting hit by every single person. Even the bulls are hating each other and are hating on the asset. We also believe that strategy is a very juicy valuation right now. It's an easy, in our opinion, 10x, 12x from here. We also talk about the sentiment in Bitcoin and how we should think about being intelligent investors in this environment and not being religious about what we put our money in, which is very, very important. Money in investment shouldn't be an emotional decision. It should be a rational decision, and we should look practical at the market and the opportunities that we have right now. Enjoy. So many things going on. There's the price going on. There's also obviously Seyr strategy. I think this they are the talk of the town every single week now, because some weeks they buy it and it's bad. If there's some weeks they sell, it's also bad. It's interesting. The blood sugar level, as we will discuss later in the episode of Bitcoiners, the whole fighting, the whole getting on each other's nerves. It's really interesting. But I want to maybe even start with just your current stand on what you see in Bitcoin in the cycles, and what you kind of see where Bitcoin currently stands.
Yeah. Oh, wow. This I think it's a deeper question than it seems on the surface. To me, personally, I understand if I tip into my own emotions, and I see that we are like hovering around 60K, and we've been there like multiple times now. The 58 K rank gang is real, and of course, then if you purely look at the price and you look back and you see, wait, I was there around 2021 in the first wave up. Then I was smart enough to hang in there when the Chinese ban came, and then we went up again, and I even bought more because then we all believed that we went straight to 100K. Well, that took a while, and then now, like 4 or 5 years later, we are back again there. So if you don't actually have learned anything all this time about the low time preference thing, then of course I understand why you are so upset and angry about Bitcoin. And so I have lots of those people that it's not like they're in my direct environment, but of course on X and on different environments, I do meet people, or I do talk to people where this energy affects me a little bit. But then again, and I think I mentioned it earlier in another conversation we had. I think emotionally it all makes sense, but then your IQ and your rational thinking should be able to help you get out of it. Understand why things mostly go slower than you actually want, especially if you're a visionary. If you look into the future, things actually go slow. People need more time than you and I to adapt to the new world. And that's also why I think this AI hype is also a little bit overhyped, because people believe that we will be in a new robotic wave world in 2 3 years from now. And I actually believe that the human brain cannot adapt that fast, and that's basically what we also see in this new form of money. It just takes a lot longer than you originally hoped for.
Maybe let's start with strategy and Sailor. How do you look at strategy without emotions, without the emotional roller coaster of the price?
Yeah, again, that's the question everyone should ask him or herself if you are interested or invested in strategy or in Bitcoin. I if I remove the emotion of, for example, if I would have bought the top around whatever $420 per share, perhaps even higher a little bit, and have ride it all way down back to where we are right now, or we bottom, perhaps it's 80, 84, 85K, and we are now like a little bit up again. If you remove that all out of the equation and you just think about all the interviews that Michael Saylor has given and all the things that he has said, I don't think he actually said stuff that he now isn't saying anymore. People like attack him all the time for words he has used. But again, like you have to read through the lines, and you also have to understand that people grow. I've said so many shit 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, and now I think slightly different. Right? You don't have to be consistent for 7 years, saying 7 years the same thing all over again, because you learn, you grow, and especially guys like him, excuse me, especially guys like him, he grows so much faster on an intellectual part than most people. He reads so much, he learns so much, and he's also into that like traditional financial system. So he has to adapt in a way that we perhaps don't have to. So if I remove all those things and think logically about what he is now doing, I still believe that he mostly is doing what he is saying, and says what he is doing. So I find it pretty transparent. Of course, things change, just like the world changes, everything changes. So he is changing as well. And then I still see him doing the same thing that he was always doing. He just tries to buy more Bitcoin and tries to create ways to buy more Bitcoin, and tries to create some type of vehicle that his shareholders can profit from it. And of course, I'm not sure if it's going to work, and I don't think he is sure as well. He just believes it's going to work, and therefore he does it. And I love every single person on earth that actually sees something that's not there yet and tries to accomplish it. And that's what he's doing.
I mean, that's the heart of entrepreneurship. Like you never know 100% it will work out with anything in life, and so you kind of have to believe it. You have to weather the storm, and you have to kind of think through like how do you get there. But you never know if you actually get there, which is there's no 100% certainty with nothing. I'm very certain on Bitcoin, like as certain as you can be, but there is no guarantee that Bitcoin actually will succeed. I can dream of examples how Bitcoin can still not succeed. It's just I believe that it will succeed, and I'm very certain on that. But there's never 100% thing. There's like this. It can be 99%, but there's like always this 0.1%, 0.2, whatever the percentage is, that things can go south. And with strategy, you not only have the Bitcoin uncertainty, but you also have the uncertainty of the management team, of the custody system, of everything that is involved around Bitcoin that they're doing. So you have Bitcoin plus all of those uncertainties. So obviously, strategy is a lot more uncertain than Bitcoin, because with strategy is you have Bitcoin plus other things, and with Bitcoin you just have the uncertainty of Bitcoin. And so
Yeah, and by the way, if we would be a little bit like, I don't know if you follow Simon Dixon sometimes. Simon Dixon has all these theories about the financial industrial complex, and of course the military industrial complex, and the theocracy, and of course China and the United States and all those secret agencies. And I do believe there's a lot we just don't know about how the world works. And then if you understand that Bitcoin is on its way to be this new form of global money, just like you, I'm like 99.9% sure it's going to play a really important role in the whole financial system globally. And if Michael Saylor has this same conviction, or even higher, or even less, I don't really care. He thinks, okay, this is then my opportunity because I see something not everyone sees, or they don't have the balls to do it. I do. And then, of course, he can come if you understand about a little bit of what we understand, because we do, as Bitcoiners, we do a lot of research, of course. And we do believe that the world is corrupt. And we know that money corrupts and that power corrupts. So we also know that if you try to become a really big, important player in the financial system, you will become part, one way or the other, of the financial industrial complex, the term that Simon Dixon uses. For what I understand, because I listen a lot to this guy, to this person, just to learn what he sees and thinks. Not that I think everything is correct that he says, but I do find it very interesting. Then only the slight possibility that it's true what he is saying, you can understand that there's lots of headwinds that come if you try to become that company that is going to be a central role in the new financial system. And then you have the old system, the traditional system, and you have all those rich families and all that stuff that people talk about. Perhaps they don't want Seyr to succeed, or perhaps not yet. Or you don't know. We don't know. So besides the management risks, besides the additional volatility above Bitcoin, we still have this as well. We should take this into consideration. So if you buy or when you buy strategy, keep that in mind, and keep in mind that he cannot say everything he wants, because that's not how a business of that, like, how that works. So, and I'm humble enough to understand that if I would talk to Einstein, that he thinks that I'm really really dumb, right? Even though I think I'm really smart, but Einstein, like, if he really had an IQ of 160, 170, he would talk to me. Let's say I'm like 120, 130. I don't really care, but let's say I'm over there. He probably thinks the same of me as I think of someone with sub 80, right? So if we understand that Michael Saylor is really, really intelligent, and all the things that are happening in that quote unquote high IQ world or a high power world, we don't know. We don't know. And if we then on X are thinking that we know better than someone like him, right? That's it's quite arrogant. It's quite arrogant. So that's what I would say to all the Bitcoiners that are so critical on what he is saying and doing. And I would say, like, just try what he does. And then if you like, I think then you will find out how difficult that is, and that you cannot say everything you want, and that you sometimes also have to quote unquote lie or say something slightly different to whatever. Yeah.
What do you think will the impact of strategy be on Bitcoin in the long run?
Wow, yeah. I think it's actually, I think that people focus way too much on strategy. Um so I think there are two questions that we could, like, and I'm so in a curious to your answer, like, how big is the role of strategy in the new financial system versus how important is strategy for the success of Bitcoin going up, right? The last question, I don't think that it's really important. I would say that it would be a very bearish narrative if something were to happen to strategy that's in the short run for the price of Bitcoin, because of course people are now already screaming it. So let alone it would actually happen, then probably, yeah, that would be very bearish for the short term. But I think long term, I don't think it really matters. We saw a strategy selling Bitcoin last week. Price went up. We have seen the spot Bitcoin ETF outflows are humongous, and now the price is still hovering around 60K. So there are new, different type of buyers. So perhaps there's stuff we don't know, Robin, that are now nation states buying Bitcoin, and within a year nobody cares about strategy too much. And if people then say, yeah, but they have really a lot of Bitcoin, and it's going to be more, yeah, of course, it's not ideal that one party has so much Bitcoin, but also don't think it's really really bad. So I would say I would rather think about the question, how important is strategy going to be in the new financial system, and how is that going to look like? Is Bitcoin going to be at the center of it, or just being a small part of it? Really interesting to think about. And if I think Bitcoin is going to succeed without any big central party action.
Yeah, I think your second question is really interesting, because if strategy wouldn't have like, imagine in 2020 Saylor came to the conclusion that Bitcoin was stupid. Like, he could have also just like not discovered Bitcoin. He could have also just bought with his 500 million, I don't know, the S&P 500 or gold or like the Magnificent Seven, like whatever. I think we would still have a strategy right now. I think there would some other company come up and say, hey, I think there is some arbitrage. I think we can be the first publicly traded company that buys Bitcoin. Then they like think around, hey, we can use all our financial power to use that and buy more Bitcoin, because the US dollar is going down and Bitcoin is going up. So in the long run, as long as you're not getting liquidated, it will work, even if we pay 10% or 5% and they are paying like 0% interest rate. So it's like another company would have come and did the same thing. The same, I think, with preferreds. I think it was just a matter of time till someone comes around and says like, oh, maybe I can do a preferred thing, because it's nothing new. Preferred stock has been around for a long time. Nobody has put it together the way they did, but it's not something, they didn't invent something new. It's not that like the iPhone came now around or something like that. So I think the success of a company like strategy was always going to happen in Bitcoin. Like that, there's no way around that. That nobody gets that. So and we already see it now. There's Strive, there's MetaPlanet, there's other companies. So there's already other companies that do the a similar, the same thing. So even if strategy would have not been the company, some other company would have done the same exact thing. And so is strategy important for the success of Bitcoin? Obviously not, because if strategy goes down, someone else will step in. The same way as no podcast is important, the same way as no speaker, no company in Bitcoin is important. If the biggest exchange in Bitcoin goes bust tomorrow, they make some space for another exchange to step in. It's That's the beauty of a decentralized network. There is no heads that you can crack. There is no company or institution that you can crack. Otherwise, if let's steelman the other argument. What if Sailor and strategy is very important for Bitcoin success? Then all of a sudden there's an attack vector, and we don't have that. It's like if strategy, if Sailor could come in 2020 and just disrupt the Bitcoin network and be all of a sudden existentially important for Bitcoin just because he buys a lot, if that would be the case, Bitcoin it was never the thing that we were thinking it was, and it is not the
Exactly.
case, obviously. So like, people make Sailor more important than he is, and funny enough, the hater make him more important than the people that actually love him, because the haters put him on this pedestal of like he can do all those bad things to Bitcoin and he holds the price down and he does all those things. I'm like, you're giving him more power than he has. Like I don't get that.
What do you think? Why do you think he gets so much hate? So we understand that Bitcoin always received hatred from people that didn't understand it. So they also hated Saylor for creating this quote unquote Ponzi adjusted scheme. But why all the Bitcoiners and basically the whole world wants him to fail? Why do you think that is?
Oh, I think it's very normal human psychology to find a villain, an enemy, when things are not working the way you think they will work. If we go back up to 250,000, a sailor will be celebrated, a strategy will be celebrated, all of those things, people will hug each other and love each other, and it will be all good and amazing. But if people are getting liquidated, people have to sell their Bitcoin at 60K because they have to cover bills because they were too greedy in the previous bull run. People get people get tensed. I mean, if you have, I don't know, if let's say you have two Bitcoin, let's just say that, in the last bull run, you had about 250,000 at the height of your net worth, and then now you have 60, you have like 100K left, and maybe you had to sell some
Yeah.
because you got greedy and you had some leverage. That does something with your ego. That does something with your personality. That does something with you internally that you might not even recognize, but it's it's those times where you see who's really convinced and understands Bitcoin and just powers through and still stays kind and nice and not not turn into an asshole that just shouts at the world and gives and all of a sudden blames everyone for their own mistakes, because even if let's say Saylor disrupted Bitcoin and he destroyed it, it's still your fault that you bought it.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
it's
yeah,
it's not
exactly.
it's not Saylor's fault that you bought Bitcoin. It's your own fault, and people blaming other people for their own mistakes is never a good thing. Taking responsibility is a very important thing. I think Bitcoiners should be the group of people that really should understand that.
This is a good bridge to the OGs or the Bitcoiners who have always like preached the world how they had a low time preference and how they were like more open-minded than the old traditional financial system for this new form of money. And they always, I think, correctly made fun of the people who didn't see it, especially if they attack Bitcoin with dumb arguments. But now I see Bitcoiners doing the same thing about strategy and Michael Saylor. They are dunking on him in a bear market, whereas everybody with a brain, with one brain cell left, knew that if Bitcoin goes down into a bear market, that strategy would also be in a bear market, right? Especially MSTR. And because it's like a quote unquote more volatile play on Bitcoin, it goes, if it all goes well, more up in a bull market and more down in a bear market. And then it actually happens. So it went more up in a bull market and it went more down in a bear market. And they're all dunking on Seyr and how awful his products are. And they do victory laps about why STRC is a failed experiment, and it all is the same accounts for all the other preferred stocks, and especially also for the MSTR shareholders. And I wonder, like, how is it possible that 6, 7 years ago you were that smart and intelligent, thinking about the low time preferences, listening to the Severin Amnus books and all that stuff, and everybody was able to do it on stage and say the nice things, and then we have a new phase into Bitcoin or on top of Bitcoin, doesn't, it depends on how you look at it, and then suddenly you become this awful, dogmatic, angry, formerly known as OG Bitcoiner, and suddenly start to scream on X all the time about what for scammer it is. And by doing so, you use the evidence of MSTR being down and STRC being off par, whereas it's just bear market behavior. Then at least wait. It, I would say until the next bull run in Bitcoin. Let's say we go up early next year, and MSTR stays behind, and SRC stays off par, and the world really hates those products. Of course, then you can say, look, 3 years ago, I was smart enough to call it out. I already told you it couldn't work. Mathematically, it couldn't work, or blah, 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 blah. And then still, you can argue if Seyr actually was a scammer or that he was actually wrong, simply wrong. He tried something wrong, okay, over, and you tried to save people from making the wrong decision. Of course. You can always say, better buy Bitcoin than better buy MSTR. I get why you would say that, but it's totally different than just like say all kinds of emotional things about something because the price goes down. And I think that's funny. So I like to say the last thing about this topic. I would say let's wait until Bitcoin goes back up again, which it eventually always will, and then let's see how MSTR performs. Does it outperform Bitcoin? Does STRC goes back on par? If that is the case, then Seyr won again. So yeah, that's how I would say it, and I think that I would definitely want to have a conversation with Seyr because I know all the interviews that I've listened to him, he's really, really smart. And of course, if someone is really, really smart, you also have to be really, really critical, I guess, because they can outsmart you, and you have to wait and know, okay, perhaps there's shit I don't know, but to then listen to screamers on X that know it better, whereas I've never seen them build anything special, that's difficult for me.
We Bitcoiners always preach not your keys, not your coins, but we're giving away all our data to the big tech servers. Your passwords, your identity, your accounts. That's why I personally switched away and started using Proton Pass. Everything is end-to-end encrypted, so not Proton and not anyone else can read your data. And look how simple this is. I just click here once on the login button and I automatically get the passkey sign-in from Proton. With just one click on it, I'm signed in. And of course, it also stores all the two-factor authentication codes. And if my credentials ever show up in a data breach, it warns me so I can act very fast. If you care about holding your own Bitcoin, you should also care about holding the control of your own data. It's the same fight. And the best part is you're not sacrificing your convenience. It's privacy and security by default, and you can start for free right now. And if you want to upgrade to Proton Plus, you get that for just $1 for your first month. Link is in the description and in the pinned comment down below. So go to proton.me/pass/Robin Seyr. Make sure you close your digital front door. It takes you 5 minutes and €0 to start with. Again, that's proton.me/pass/Robin Seyr. And from the moment they first bought Bitcoin in 2020, they still outperform Bitcoin even in this bear market. I just looked it up recently. I think Bitcoin is up like 580% or something like that since they bought Bitcoin, and Strategy is up like 700 something percent. So Bitcoin made a more than 6x, and Strategy made more than 8x over that period of time, which is amazing for anyone who bought Bitcoin or Strategy in 2020. They are doing amazing. But it is quite interesting that even though all this hate, all this negative sentiment on his stock, in the long side, and it's not even that long, it's what 6 years now, which I mean it's medium term long, but it's not a decade. He still outperforms Bitcoin in this bear market. So I personally believe, even though, okay, before I say that, I want to clarify, I'm 80+% in Bitcoin self custody. I think if you don't have Bitcoin in self custody, you shouldn't even look at Strategy. I think Bitcoin self custody is the foundation. If you understand why you need Bitcoin and why you need it in self custody, only then look at Strategy. I think for people that just go 100% in Strategy, I'm not certain if they fully understand what Bitcoin really is. If you have 0% in Bitcoin self custody, and if you don't really fully understand what Bitcoin is, I don't think you should be invested in Strategy. But that's just my
Fair
opinion.
point. Yeah, fair point.
And so, but I, even though I'm like very hard on self custody, I mean, I co-founded a self-custody company, Microseed. So I'm the lead, I'm the most incentivized to say Strategy shit. Give Bitcoin in self-custody. Like, my financial incentive is to say exactly that. But I still believe that Strategy has a shot at being the biggest company in planet Earth, just because they figured out Bitcoin very early and of their position in the market. Because one question that you tossed around that I forgot to answer was, what do I think is the role of Strategy in the future, in the financial world, but also in the Bitcoin world? I think they have a chance to be huge. I like, that's not a guarantee. They could still go bankrupt. I don't see the path to bankruptcy for Strategy currently, but it's still a possibility with every business. But I personally think they have a very good chance of becoming the number 1, 2, 3 company on planet Earth. And if that's true, there's a huge potential that you can still capture with Strategy. Now, again, first Bitcoin, first self custody. Before that, don't even think about Strategy, because you need to understand Bitcoin and self custody to even a little bit comprehend what Strategy is. And just as a context, I started researching Strategy last year in December. And I'm now every week listening to videos, researching stuff, and I still don't feel confident 100% to say I understand what Strategy actually is doing, because it's just a very different world. But yeah, I'm curious how you think Strategy's position in the future financial world might look like if they are executing well. Like, it's with an operating company, you always have to like put that if in there, as like, if they operate and execute on a high level as they showed the
Yeah.
last 5 years.
Yeah. So I always try to get back to also to the fundamentals, right? So like you said, like you're now analyzing Strategy and try to figure out what they exactly are doing. And within my company, Beyond Scene, we're doing this in our premium group for a very long time. From the beginning, actually, we were constantly listening to everything that we could get our hands on, try to invite experts to explain how this works and why this could be valuable. And then because even if I don't understand it, you can always get back to the thing that Bitcoiners know, and that's the Austrian economic part of things. And one of the basic rules is all value is subjective. So even though you might not value what he's building or creating, you can understand that if someone else does, it has value. That's basically a very simple rule to understand. And if you extrapolate that to what Michael Saylor is saying, and I think he's trying to do, he tries to sell something to some group of people or some group of capital that values what he is creating. That's what he does. He believes that he can create an instrument that big pools of capital actually do value. You might not value it, and I do not value it, but this big pool of capital does value it. And so they buy his instrument so that he can buy more Bitcoin in the here and now. It's really Really simple. And you can say, I don't value STRC because XYZ. I don't value MSTR because of XYZ. But the world basically does, because they give him their money. They do give it to him. And of course, then suddenly something blows up because they made a mistake. And you can, of course, argue about how dumb it was that they made that mistake by using the USD reserve in the wrong way instead of building it up. You can, of course, argue about all that stuff. But the Mark gives them feedback. They listen. They change. And then you see things going up again. And you see that the market responds well on the decisions that they have made. So, okay, so all value is subjective. That's really important. I believe in a future where Bitcoin is going to play a really, really big part in the new financial system. So, automatically, I cannot see a future where strategy is not going to play a really big role in the new financial system. And how that exactly is going to play out, I really don't know, because I don't know what their ambition is. I don't know what their vision is behind the scenes that they don't tell us. Do they actually want to become some type of huge central bank in the new financial system, or do they just want to be a financial company that plays a central role? And I also don't know how the governments are going to respond to like a huge ass power like strategy is going to become. Really difficult to answer that question, because also like 2 3 years ago, when the AI trade wasn't really a thing, we didn't know what type of new trade would suck up all the capital out of Bitcoin and the crypto part. And now suddenly everyone knows. So in hindsight, it's so easy. And in hindsight, everyone knows, okay, yeah, the AI trade is there. Nobody cares about Bitcoin anymore. Nobody cares about MSTR anymore, et cetera, et cetera. And then suddenly now everyone thinks that the AI trade will go on forever, because again, like I said earlier in our conversation, in 2 years, we are in some type of like SpaceX type of world. But of course, within a year, something can happen and everything changes. And then suddenly capital rotates back into Bitcoin. Strategy does some stuff well and it goes way faster. And Bitcoin does go to 1 million within 3 or 4 years. Everybody seems to know that we have diminishing returns. Everybody seems to know we have a lower low in October. And nobody seems to think about what if something suddenly changes, just like we have seen in the AI trade. And then in a world like that, man, strategy will have a lot of power, will have periods of lots of tailwinds, and then I believe something changed again, and there will be a lot of headwinds. So, dude, I really don't know. I just think it's gonna be it's going to be a lot bigger than it is right now, and therefore I see it. I see in my eyes, in my mind, in how I think about stuff, an easy um, times 10, an easy times 10 from here, from where we are right now, like $100 per share.
Yeah, like it's crazy. But it's just like we have a 6x just from getting to the last all-time high, which yeah, you can make the argument maybe it was a little bit overvalued with, like, I don't know what had they, like 5 MNAF or something like that. So like they had a hefty premium on them. I don't know if they get that again. Maybe, I don't know. But they have a huge way in front of them. One thing that you said, which I think I really want to double click on because it's a very important point, is that first of all value is subjective, but like also the more important point for me is 99% of the value in the world right now is not in Bitcoin. Like almost all capital that floats around is not into Bitcoin. And I think as Bitcoiners, we have to sometimes like remember that yes, Bitcoin is a 1 point whatever trillion dollar asset, but it's actually nothing compared to what all the equity is in the world, all the gold is in the world, all the real estate, the bonds, like all of those things. And Saylor gave an amazing speech, I think, at Prague, one that I did not anticipate to be that good and that new, of a view how he looks at the world. He not only gave the view like what is money and all of those things, which was really fascinating to see, but he also gave views of who actually controls money, who actually is kind of the gateways to where money is flowing. There was one big surprise for me that like financial advisors have such a huge a role to play in like where money flows. And so the world is a little bit more complex that sometimes we want to make it as. Like we are saying, like, yeah, Bitcoin is the best money ever. We don't need any financial instruments. Everyone will just buy Bitcoin, run their own node, and do self custody. I would love to be in that world.
Yeah.
I would love for that to be true. I would love for everyone just to connect their own node, do self. I preach that every single day. I have maybe two friends of mine that do the same thing. And I have 99% of all the other people that I know in my real life that don't do the same thing. Some of them have Bitcoin, but they mostly have an exchange. Some of them only have it in an ETF, so not even on an exchange, which is even worse, I think, than having it on exchange, because you don't even have the right to withdraw it. Almost none of them run their own node. I think the almost the only person in my friend group, I think maybe two, three others that might run a node that I'm actually not aware of. But like almost none of them run a node. Self custody is something. What is self custody? Like I have my bank account that it's mine. Like that's my self custody. So even though I would love for the world to be that easy, so like, hey, everyone gets their metal plates and their hardware wallets and their multi-signature, and that's it. That's how Bitcoin succeeds. We run our own Bitcoin node, we run our own Lightning node, but I don't think it's that easy. And I think people will have the financial advisors, they will have their financial instruments, they will have their MSTR stretch, they will have the BlackRocks, they will have their fiat things that we might not like, but it's part of reality. And I don't think it's good to close your eyes to reality when reality is valued of 99% and you are valued 1%. So I don't know.
Yeah. No,
Might be
but
a
this is
controversial thing.
this, no, this is a really good point. This is well said, by the way, and it all comes down again to that one slogan, like all value is subjective. So history has proven this time and time again. Of course, we the longer you are in Bitcoin, the more you move away from everybody's dumb for not using Bitcoin to I get why they are not using Bitcoin. You should be a little bit more humble and understand that people just value things differently. So you could argue, of course, that someone that still saves in euros is not that smart about quote unquote money. But it could also be that this person does not care about money and care more about different stuff, their kids, for example, and gives all their intellectual intelligence or their energy, intellectual energy, wanted to say, or their bandwidth to their kids. Then would you argue that they are dumb, or are they smarter than someone who doesn't give their attention to their kids? It doesn't mean that they're exclusive. You can still do both, because I do both. That's not the point. The point is more that you can argue all you want, but people in the past also did not save in gold when there was a better option. And I don't necessarily think that everyone was that dumb. They just thought, okay, some of them, I would argue, knew that it would be a risk to use papers instead of gold, but still, because of the convenience, they chose consciously to use paper instead of gold. Like, okay, I do trade in paper because it's easier and I can quote unquote trust it up until a certain point. And that certain point came, but it came perhaps after 20 years, 30 years. That means you have to think about, okay, there's all this time when my gold was in a bank, I used paper notes for 20 years and it was really convenient. So all these transactions that I did with my paper notes, all this time, all these little transactions gave me value, right? Because like in a small thing, it gave me a more easier choice. It was faster, it was better at the moment, or it was easier to transact with, whatever. So all those things add up. And then if that one risk in 20 years later that you might lose it all or might lose a part of it, that's something, of course, that's something you should consciously think of. And most people don't. That's why we preach about Bitcoin and self custody. But if you preach it and people still say, yeah, well, I don't care, I just keep doing what I'm doing, then understand one thing. They might be less smart than you with regards to money, That's is probably true, especially if you're a Bitcoin and you have done all your work. But it could also be that they just simply value life in a different way, and you are not in a position to say anything about that, to judge that. That's just basically their decision. And I understand that people are then angry about the central authorities because they brainwash people into belief that the euro or the dollar is a good form of currency, blah blah blah. Of course, I talk about this all the time. So I'm a yeah, I'm also preaching to myself in this sense because I always talk about central authorities how bad they are. But we should really think about this thing about value. I think it's important to understand that. And yes, of course, if you can help people, just say that they buy Bitcoin, put it in self custody, do all the things that you said. But running your own node, I have in my premium group, I think we have like 35-ish members. I think they all wanted to run their own node, and I think only like 3 or 4 are actually doing it. So I understand it's the same. It's the same in everybody's environment. And what I also see, and that was what popped up in my brain when you were sharing this, even though I explain it and I see that I talk to an intelligent investor, they also understand why Bitcoin in self custody is quote unquote better. They still value shares of a Bitcoin treasury company more for whatever reason. Yeah. So it's not, and it's not because they are not intelligent. They just simply calculate for themselves. They measure, hey, my return on investment, okay, in dollar terms, but who cares? Or some even measure it in Bitcoin per share. So they do think about, I want to become richer in Bitcoin, but Bitcoin per share. Anyways, doesn't really matter. They understand the concept and they still decide to put money into MSTR or into Capital B or into H100 or into whatever. They still do it. So are they not allowed to? Yes, of course they're allowed to. And if they then buy a share of a company and this company buys Bitcoin with it, then it's still a net positive for the Bitcoin economy. So that's what I would like to say to everybody who does not understand why there are Bitcoin treasury companies. Apparently, people like buying that more or find it more convenient to buy that more than buy Bitcoin themselves. Could be, right?
It's so interesting because it's sometimes I speak mostly about Twitter. It's hard to be nuanced because people want you to pick a very clear side and be on one side or the other, and it's like hard to
Yeah.
like have some nuanced opinion. One thing I want to address because you mentioned that before, because this is actually the biggest threat I personally see to MSTR, and if we talk positive about it, I feel like we can also talk a little bit negative about it. There's a lot of FUD out there of strategy of like, oh, they're using weird AI videos. There's a debt spiral. They get liquidated at that Bitcoin price. All that I think is nonsense, just because the math shows you otherwise. But there's one actual thing that I'm a little bit concerned about is the fiat system. Fiat system fighting them. It's the
Yeah.
banks and the central
Yeah.
banks looking at what they're doing and saying, "That's what we do. You don't get to do that." So get out here. Like that's
Yeah.
the single biggest threat I personally see in strategy. I mean that's also the single biggest argument that we always heard on Bitcoin in the beginning.
Yeah.
Like they will not allow that. Bitcoin is too good to be allowed. With Bitcoin, I don't get that argument because it's just like reached escape velocity in that point. I think you cannot put the genie back in the bottle with a centralized company, and he's smart, he's pushing other companies to do it, and he's helping other companies because he knows if he's the only company that does exactly what he's doing, he's an attack vector. But if he's one of the companies of like 30 companies that do the same thing, it's a lot harder to like kick out 30 companies than to kick out one company. And so he's doing it very smart. He was also very smart in working with all the banks and the neobanks and the exchanges and giving them all of those things. So he's working very diligently around that issue. But if I had to put my finger on like what is the biggest threat that I currently see with strategy is the fiat system fighting them. How do you look at that kind of setup when the fiat system is like you cannot issue stretch, like that's what we banks are doing?
Yeah, I don't, no, agreed. That's why because it perhaps sounds or comes across that I like quote unquote defend Bitcoin treasury companies. I really don't care that much. I do like them to succeed because I believe it's a step in the right direction with regard to the whole Bitcoin world and the Bitcoin economy, where I believe in. But I do believe that this is the most important threat that could become a reality. Um, you like you said, I feel like he clearly knows what he's doing. He understands all the different powers in the world, and I do believe that politically he's playing his part, or they are playing their part really really well. But it can change overnight. That's how I feel about it. Something can change in the world overnight, and they suddenly become enemy number one of the state, for example. If the political colors are going to change, perhaps something changed in this sense as well. And I do see that as a threat. But the same can be said about the AI trade, right? You see AI going up, and then suddenly Trump says something about all these about these new systems that they are releasing, or these new verses that they are releasing. Okay, this can be dangerous, and you see things going back and correcting. This world where we are going into, it's a grab for power at this moment. And if the one that you are choosing, if the companies that you are choosing to invest in are on the wrong side of that emerging power, then you are probably going to lose. And I would say that strategy is also part of this thinking, and you should be careful. If you believe that the political colors are going to change 2 years from now, then something might change in this sense as well. That doesn't mean that strategy goes down or that the ship goes down in full, but it does create some type of like whatever, that it takes 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years longer. And I think the same can be said about Bitcoin, right? Everybody believes in the 4 year cycles, or lots of 4 year cyclers, as up until now, quote unquote, been proven right. I'm not a believer of the 4 year cycle, but yeah, what can I say? If we indeed make a lower low in October, they were right again for whatever reason. Um, but what if the 4 year cycle is going to change, but not positively, but negatively? So let's say we go into a bear market for 4 or 5 years, just like gold went into a bear market for 10 or 12 years after a blow off top in 2011, 2012. It didn't came back until 2022, right? Like, so let's say Bitcoin does that. What happens to strategy? I don't think they are going to survive, if that were to happen. Perhaps they do. Perhaps they find something interesting. But I think it's going to be a really, really big problem. Bitcoin is going to survive. They are not going to survive for 10 years. So and if Bitcoin or strategy is indeed enemy number one still from the emerging powers, then I would say they should have the power to make this happen. And then you and I, and it's also important. I would say for everybody that's listening, I don't think it's a high probability at all. But if I would definitely say, let's say 2, 3, 4, 5% of probability that something like this would somewhere in the future happen, or is going to happen, then I would also say, think about your opportunity cost of being in Bitcoin then, right? Think about the value that you give to your life. And are you okay with going down for 5 to 6 or 7, 8 years simply because you believe in some type of new form of money? If in the same time frame other stuff goes up, you should be able to look at yourself in the mirror and rationally and consciously say to yourself, I deliberately choose to stay in an asset that goes down, whereas I could have been in an asset that goes up. And if you have like this philosophical way of living, and you have these your vision and all these values that you or these principles that you live upon, keep doing it. But if you just want to take care for your family, and I have, and I have kids, and I want to make sure that I can pay for their whatever private school in whatever country I live in, then I should be also thinking about these things. And that's why I'm less dogmatic than I was in the past of holding Bitcoin. And just like you, I'm still 80% plus on a Bitcoin standard. But if I feel like strategy might be attacked, and if I feel like Bitcoin is going to go into a longer bear market, not now, but in the future, I should rethink everything that I have done until now, I guess. What do you think? Is that a good way of saying it? Is that something we also have to think about or talk about?
With Microseed, you can engrave your 12 or 24 word seed phrase, the entire seed phrase, onto a 1-inch small washer. Yes, just one washer. All 24 words on that one washer. You can hide that thing everywhere. And even better, you don't need to buy a new kit every time you have to get a new wallet. You can make unlimited backups because Microseed is not selling the washer. Microseed is selling the device that stamps the washer. So you get the full kit with the device, with the washers, with the hammer, with everything you need to get started today. And you can make with that unlimited amount of backups. Go now to microseed.io. I finally and officially mine Bitcoin. This is not just something to stack more Satoshis, but it's most importantly also to support the network. Individual miners are the ones that keep the Bitcoin network decentralized. And by the way, you get KYC free Bitcoin. That's why I use Simple Mining. I get an actual proper Bitcoin miner. They set it up for me. They repair it if it breaks down. And most importantly, they let me choose the pool and even connect my own full node. I'm completely sovereign and I'm completely in control, and I can sign up with Ocean, no account needed. I just give them a Bitcoin address and then there's mining going on. No KYC, nothing. So if you're ready to mine Bitcoin, go to simplemining.io, tell them you come from Robin, and let's mine Bitcoin together.
Yeah, 100%. But I also like your framing. I think it fits nicely here. That I think you said it in the beginning, or maybe I heard it somewhere else. But you said buy high quality the assets that everyone hates. I love that because this is literally what I did since my beginning of the investment career. I bought before Bitcoin. I was into Tesla, and I bought it when it was going down and down, and I bought it before it went profitable. So it was a company that lost a lot of money every single quarter, but I really liked the foundations. I liked the branding. I loved what Elon Musk was doing, and I bought it, for like, I don't know, like 6, 7, 8 months. It was just going down, and it was my first investment. I was like 18, 19 years old. I was like, fuck, I'm losing all my money. I think I put like $4,000 or something like that in there, which by the time was literally all I had. But the 4,000 was just my whole net worth. And so I put everything into Tesla. And yeah, after 7 months, I had like 2,000 anymore. I was like, oh, nice. I just like lost half my net worth, and it was not a lot in the beginning, and it's even less now. But at the point where it was down a lot, I researched. I was like, yeah, no, that thing works. The foundations get better and better every quarter, and the price gets down every quarter. So I'll just put everything, put more in there, and it worked out really great. The same with Bitcoin. I bought when it was super hated in 2020, when it went down to, what was it, 4,000, 5,000, something like that. And after in the COVID area, it went down like drastically. It probably went down to 3,000 if I remember correctly, something like that.
Yeah.
And everyone hated on it. Nobody liked it. Like everyone was like saying shit about it. And I was the crazy guy that like, I want to get into this. And so like every time I went into an asset that got hated, that I think is a high quality one, it paid off massively. And now I'm doing the same thing with strategy. Ever since I'm starting to research of the strategy, they're getting hated and slammed massively. I started buying them December last year, January this year. So like when the heat for them was already on, and now it's like 2x the heat that they're getting. And I think it's a high quality asset that gets a lot of heat and hatred. And in the past, with my 2 other trades, Tesla and Bitcoin, I know it's not that long of a history. It worked really great. And I think strategy will be the third one, which it will work really great. But to your point, I think they will get problems if Bitcoin gets in a 10-year bear market. I don't think this will happen. But if Bitcoin would get in a very long, sustained bear market, Bitcoin would not get into troubles, I think, but strategy and treasury and on all the other treasury companies might actually get into troubles. If it's only 4 years, 3 years, I think they can weather the storm because they just have so much capital. But 10 years is a long time. That's a very long time.
Yeah, so I think Bitcoin will be back, no problem. And let's say that 10 years in gold is 4 years in Bitcoin, or 5 years tops in Bitcoin, right? So let's say 5 years is really long in Bitcoin terms. We are all depressed like hell if that were to happen, and I think that is really bad for the Bitcoin treasury company space, especially if it happens relatively soon in their life cycle. So if we just keep on going in these 3 4 year cycles that Bitcoin now has, the first couple of years, strategy will be so big that it doesn't really matter even if Bitcoin then gets into a bear market. But the new companies then would be in trouble unless they have weathered the storm for 2 or 3 cycles more. That's what I would make my base case of. I just think that there will come a time eventually that Bitcoin is going to respond more like a real global asset. People already call it a global asset, but it's not that yet because it's way too small relatively to the real global assets, I would say. And once it reaches that point, then anything can happen. Like we have seen gold go times three, whereas it already had such a big market cap of $12 trillion. It went to like 25, 26, 27, whatever, in a relatively short amount of time. So we can see the same thing happening with Bitcoin. We can indeed get into a Bitcoin quote unquote gold rush. In 2 3 4 years, Bitcoin goes to 1 million relatively fast, and then stays there for a long time, then corrects, perhaps 7 6 5, and then stays there for a long time. And for the people that have bought and $700 or $800 on token, they can at least, for them it feels like a real bear market. For us it does not, because we already were in Bitcoin from 3,000 4,000 6,000 10,000 12,000 60,000, all those amounts that we have bought. Just for us it doesn't really feel like a bear market, but I can imagine if that happens, that we just get a new situation. And I would say, like, already think about the probability of that happening somewhere in the future, and think about how you want to stay married with your thesis of only buying Bitcoin. So I'm talking only about people that are all into Bitcoin, and Bitcoin is the only thing that you should ever invest in, because I believe that opportunity cost is a real thing. It's like, think about it like this. Bitcoin is this perfect money that you can use as this perfect saving technology, meaning that if you want to save the money, put it in Bitcoin. But if you want to invest it because you see or think or believe you have an edge to get a higher return so you can outperform Bitcoin, you should use your brain and do it. Like, it's not a bad thing to use your brain and outperform Bitcoin in moments you can do it. And I don't mean per se that, like, what people meant when they were saying this in the past, go into the shitcoin casino and then buy Bitcoin low and blah. No. I just simply mean you have a lot of Bitcoin now. You're you don't want to die with a lot of Bitcoin. You want to also spend it. So invest it to do beautiful stuff with your family. Invest it for your own business to reach more people, to create more impact. But also invest it sometimes in an idea of a friend of yours, or in a company that is able to outperform Bitcoin. And that can be strategy, but it can also be something completely else. I just think, like, I've read so much because my background is psychology, and if I then feel this dogmatic energy, I get the wrong vibes, right? I just want to say anything that I can to get you out of that dogmatic thinking, because almost no one really becomes a happy person by being dogmatic. So
I think so too. The last thing I want to talk about is touched on it a little bit, but it's the psychology of cycles, and the Bitcoin price is the blood sugar level of Bitcoiners. how did you live through those cycles, and is that cycle for the sentiment of Bitcoin the worst that you have ever seen? I've heard Lynn Alden actually say that recently on Natalie Brunell's channel, of like saying this is the worst that she has ever seen in the sentiment of like the where it's going. Is that kind of also what you are seeing?
same. So of course I can vividly remember the prior two bear markets and what I felt. So I felt more scared back then, but if I tap into my own emotion and connecting with the vibes in the community, I would say this is the most angry one. So the prior two, people were like afraid. They were not basically. I felt they were more afraid that the price would go down further. That's what they were afraid of. But there wasn't like an existential Bitcoin crisis. And I feel like we are now more in that last thing that I said, existential part. Like, Bitcoin didn't do what it usually does in a bull market. Now it still goes down for a really huge part, and nobody cares because AI is here now. So we have now new beautiful shiny stuff like this Bitcoin and crypto wave is gone. 2021 was the last serious bull market. Then we had like a final whatever knee-jerk reaction to, yeah, we made a new all-time high, but not really. That's how they feel about it. And now we still go down back to that 60K range where we were in 2020, 2021. So I understand why people are saying this, and I think it is Sullivan on X who is now creating all those charts with the sentiment part of Bitcoin. Really interesting, because when he was sharing those charts, I was, yes, this is it. People are done. It's now really fucking boring. If I make a short about AI, it goes up. If I make a short about Bitcoin, it goes down. Of course, if in views. Of course, if I say something about Bitcoin is dead, my views go up as well. Because of course that's negative and that always works. So what I feel is that the market is now so not even angry, like, and afraid. It's more depressed. It's frustration. It's almost like a burnout. Bitcoin is like in a sort of burnout, like the people that cannot get up anymore out of bed, and it's like, no, there's nothing anymore, man. This is it. This is it. Bitcoin now will forever go nowhere. Like, it's just nowhere, nothing anymore. Yes, all-time high, perhaps to 130, and then back again to 70, perhaps like for years. No, I'm not going to spend my time anymore on this fucking shit. That's what I feel, and what I can also get back. So I would say this is perhaps the best energy to buy. This is the best moment ever. Indeed, what I said, buy high quality shit that everybody hates. And then Bitcoin is high quality. It's, people don't even hate it anymore. They just don't talk about it anymore. They just think you're just that boomer that's still. Are you still talking about the Bitcoin thing, Mark? Are you still really believe? Oh, really? Oh no, man! I thought you were clever, man. I thought you would already have moved on and stuff. That's the vibe that I feel right now, and I think that's probably one of the best vibrations you should add some Bitcoin.
Yeah, if you take the fear and greed index, which is a very simple one, I don't recommend it, but like if you just take this one and just buy when there's massive fear in the market, you would have done it astronomically good just from that very simple, very almost stupid thing that is out there. Just like take this, and like every time there's massive fear in the market, just buy it. You can also take 200-week moving average and like the power law and all those different kind of instruments that measure like how good of a price it currently is. I don't care for those things too much, but it is interesting that if you look at all of them, they all tell you right now, buy. This is the zone where it's like smash buy, dipping. I don't like that. I don't like to go into that. But if you like that, this is the time to do it. Like it's right that amazing time to be in the market and double down on your conviction. And unfortunately, most people won't do it, and most people will get into Bitcoin when it's back up at 150K, 200K, because then everyone is doing it. Then they are borrowing against the Bitcoin. Then they get greedy, and then obviously they get liquidated in the next bear market because they got greedy again, and then they're desperate and angry in the next bear market again. That's the whole cycle, I guess.
Robin, this is a perfect point. I want to add something because I'm going to play the next cycle like this. And some people would probably say, no, Mark, don't do it. Just this dollar cost averaging in. I did that last cycle. So every money that I made or customers that I had, I received euros and bought Bitcoin straight away with it, or they paid me in Bitcoin. So that's basically the dollar cost averaging in method. What I'm now thinking about doing, because we are every time in that same type of cycle, and I really believe in that, okay, buy high quality shit what everybody hates. So what I'm now going to do, I'm going to now for the first 3 years, I'm going to save my euros, depending on how much inflation we actually have, because otherwise, of course, there's a lot of money in those 2-3 years of saving. But all the money that I will make, I will create that, like, that's this account. All this money goes in, and I only buy shit that everybody hates during that moment. So meaning, if Bitcoin is up and everybody loves Bitcoin, I will not buy Bitcoin in that period. I will rather buy something that everybody hates, even if it's silver, gold, even tech software companies. Or back then, if then the AI trade is back down, and you have all these companies like Wi-Fi and Nebius, and they are like correcting, and everybody says they're shit, and that the Chinese models are going to outcompete them, and blah 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 blah. Fine, I take a big position in Nebius, and I take a big position in Wi-Fi, simply because everybody was preaching it when it went up. Now it's down the drain. Now I'm going to create a position. Of course, disclaimer: if you don't have an edge in these companies or in that information, probably stick to Bitcoin and stick to what you know, of course. And that is for everyone. But I probably gonna do it differently. I'm gonna try to actually buy shit that everyone hates that I think has high quality. Meaning that I have lots of euros over when Bitcoin indeed is in a new situation when everybody hates it, and I can buy big. Because now I cannot buy that big as I want to. And I think, shit, Mark, you're now in this game for 7, 8 years. You could basically have predicted this a little bit. You could have had more euros right now than you have right now. And that's what I'm thinking. So I know people would say, yeah, but Mark, that's more like short term. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. No, because then I have actually more Bitcoin and more high quality stuff later on in my life. What do you think, Robin, as last point? Do you think it's interesting to think about this like this?
I will bring something up because there are things that I would love to own, but they were overvalued, and I'm waiting for better entry. And Bitcoiners might get mad at me, but I don't care. This right here is SpaceX. I would love to be a shareholder of SpaceX. I would absolutely love that. But I just, even if they corrected now, they started 160, they went up to
Yeah.
200. I was like, that's crazy. They are never worth that much, and I've never bought it. And now they're going down to 148, which is still, in my opinion, a lot. It's $2 trillion market cap.
Yeah.
It's still in the like top 10 companies of the world. They don't have any. They have a lot of risk to them. I've covered that in a thing, but I would just absolutely love for that stock to tank 80%, and I can buy some stocks, because I will not buy it at a $2 trillion market cap. I can tell you that. But if they go down 50, 60, 80%, I might
Yes, you're a buyer.
I might just buy a little bit of it, because at that point it becomes a good thing. The same, I sold my Tesla position. It was probably the biggest mistake I've ever done, but just because I lost so much just to taxes, I should have just kept it, honestly. But I bought more Bitcoin with it, so I don't know. It also was good. If you look at that, it's not bad, but it's also not good. So I hope this thing also goes down a lot further. Like if it goes down 50%, I would love for there to be a huge correction in the overall stock market. I'm a huge Tesla and SpaceX fan, but I don't own any of that because I think they don't have that much. Like if you think about it, like it's a $1.2 trillion company. They still
Yeah.
have a lot of headwinds in front of them, and how much can they grow? They can be the biggest company in planet Earth. That's 5 trillion. So that's like
Yeah.
a 4x from here. Yes, of course, with inflation, like it will get higher, but like I don't care for the inflation part. I want to have real growth. And so let's say they have a real growth potential if they execute really well of like 6, 7x in the next, I don't know, 10, 15 years, which is great, but it's not that huge. When you think about strategy, how small they are right now with, I don't know, $40 billion market cap, and they have a genuine chance of being one of the biggest companies on planet Earth. They have like 100x, 150x in front of them if they execute well, if Bitcoin works out, and all of those things. And so I love what you said, because I have, and it's not just those two. I have a few other ones that are on my list that I observe like once a month how they are doing, just to see if they are completely getting screwed and like 50% down, 60% down, and maybe at the same time Bitcoin is ripping. I might just buy some of those
Yeah.
stocks with a new income. It's
I
it's
think at,
not a bad idea.
Tesla is also, of course, in the robotic side, in the humanoid wave. And if we don't get a correction because of physical dominance and all the money printing, et cetera, and how important the stock market is to for the financial system, and the AI trade is overcrowded or becomes overcrowded, I think it already is, but then even more. Then we could argue, is the humanoid wave the next one? Because there's lots of money going into there right now, and then Tesla is one of the big names that is then like it's already a huge company, so you don't get indeed like a 2-3x easy, but what you do get is a winner. So I'm also thinking about, if you have like a small portfolio with a few companies in it, you of course want to buy that company that still has a 10x potentially or 20x potentially, but because there's so much risk in that trade, you also have to keep in mind that socially, emotionally, you also want to win in your life. That gives you a good feeling and self-confidence. So I would argue that if someone creates their own portfolio in the humanoid AI trade corner, with 5 companies, pick a certain winner, because you know this company is simply going to win if that trade plays out, Tesla. And then because you also want to make a 10x. I'm now looking in this company Ooster. You can buy Ooster and then hope for a 10x. But if it does nothing, you are okay, because you're also winning with Tesla. Make sense? And then of course, because you still have this strategy of, I buy high quality shit that everybody hates, you also know that in the end you will win with your other side of the portfolio, because you buy Bitcoin when it's low, you buy MicroStrategy when it's low, you buy some type of tech software company that everyone hates right now, Salesforce, Adobe, everybody hates it. So you can simply just buy and wait, because you know that it will come back. And then again, you can say, yeah, but Mark, it's not my vision to invest in tech stocks, because I believe in an AI future. Okay, then don't do it. Don't do it. I just say, like, there are some high quality things that everybody hates right now. And if that's your thesis, then do that. But also you want to align it with your vision of the future, Bitcoin world, Bitcoin economy, AI driven, blah, blah, blah. Okay, then skip those. Know that they are there, and do this same strategy in the area that you have an edge. And I think that's what we have been talking about. And I think for me personally, Bitcoin is going to forever be my savings account. And I try to understand, okay, Mark, if I grab some Bitcoin, so sell Bitcoin and use it for something else, I take risk. So it better be worth it, right? It better be worth it. And sometimes the risk reward ratio means, okay, it's a high risk but a high reward if I'm correct, or it's a low risk and it's a low reward, because I know it's a quote unquote certain winner in this space. And for example, SpaceX and Tesla, when they have corrected, they are basically certain winners, I would say, in that space where we are going into. So I totally understand why you're a fan of these companies, and would definitely keep looking into it.
I love that. It's I think as Bitcoiners we have to be we got to be Bitcoiners because we were open-minded, and we looked at stuff because most Bitcoiners dismissed the idea of Bitcoin at the first place. And I think we have to keep being open-minded to new ideas, to other ways also, and be pragmatic about things. So with my very hard line of like having most of it in Bitcoin self-custody and only allocating new capital that comes into new stuff. I think it's a very nice. I mean, I don't want to praise myself, but I think for me, it works really well. Of like keeping that, not selling that, because I don't want to sell my Bitcoin. But like with new capital, I can play with new stuff. And currently, my new stuff is strategy. I still buy some Bitcoin here and there actually, but like strategy is my new stuff. And if Bitcoin and strategy starts ripping like crazy, I might just add something else, which is I think very fine.
Yeah, I think so. I think being a Bitcoiner is not only holding Bitcoin. I think that the thesis of Bitcoin represents way more. And I believe that for like being a good human being, being a good father, being a good friend, being a good husband, being a good everything, I think that is the lower time preference investment thesis. So every second of the day, I think about how can I spend this second the best way, with the highest return on investment of that specific second. Sometimes that is recording a podcast about Bitcoin, about strategy, and therefore we do it. But sometimes that means doing something with your kids. Now, let's say you have put all your money into Bitcoin. Now you have to sell some Bitcoin to go to the pool because you have to pay the entry ticket. Do you actually sell Bitcoin or do you use Bitcoin? If that makes sense, right? So it's the same, I guess, with the opportunity cost of because we call it investing, but it's just simply make use of your time and energy because you already have saved your time and energy into Bitcoin because that's where you save it in. But now you see something coming along that gives you potentially a better return on investment. For example, spend time with your wife. Better. So you use it, have dinner, and now the relation has more romantic, you have more sex, whatever, all that stuff. So that's good. Good investment of your time and energy, AI, Bitcoin. So in another way, you could also argue that if you then not like you think you sell your Bitcoin for example, Tesla, but you actually use your Bitcoin because it already went up in value. You already invested it 5 years ago and now it went up and now you use it. Perhaps it's for fun, perhaps it's just to stay interested in the markets, perhaps it's interesting just to talk about it in a podcast, for example. And you have more listeners then. And that gives you more return and you can buy more Bitcoin, right? It's so much more than only buying your Bitcoin with your money. That's how I have been thinking about it lately. And it's not to like, I can understand why people say, yeah, that's a scope of you wanting to buy something else. Yeah, think about it like that. But I think about it like Bitcoin is my base. It's simply my base. And that makes me think about every second of the day, how do I want to invest this? If I want to do yoga now because then my lower back goes away, I do it. And if I need to use Bitcoin for it, I do it as well. I hope this makes sense to everybody that's also like listening and thinking about, okay, what should I do? It's not that difficult. You simply have to, okay, what gives me more? And it can also be fun. That's what I said. All value is subjective. It can also just be more fun to look for SpaceX for the right time to buy it because you just enjoy it. And then Bitcoin gives you that enjoyment. That's because money gives you that enjoyment, right? So it's a little bit more philosophical, I would say, or bigger than most people think from the beginning about, okay, should I buy Bitcoin? Should I buy something else? I would just like add this into the conversation and everybody can do whatever he wants, of course.
It's a really interesting point. Never thought about inviting like a Tesla guy on my podcast, but it might be an interesting conversation. But that's a whole nother thing. Thank you so much, Marc, for being on the podcast. We have an end routine as we're coming closer to the end of our time, where the previous guest is asking a question for the next guest without knowing who the next guest actually is. And previous guest asked you a very simple question. Why is Bitcoin better than shitcoins?
Why is Bitcoin better than shitcoins? Yeah, because there is no ego in it. That's my answer. No ego. And I have not come across another cryptocurrency that also had no ego in it. That's it.
Yeah, it's the decentralization and the ego of it. It's crazy. If I think about any other altcoin, I mean, thankfully they're currently not discussed. I remember the early days of me being involved in Bitcoin Twitter. There was a lot of fight against cryptos, against shitcoins, and it was like very passionately. It was a very hard fight, but right now it seems like they're they're no longer here. They are kind of gone. Like, I mean, the XRP army might just be here and there a little bit. There's some annoying people from Solana. The Ethereum people, I don't hear anything from them anymore. Like, they're completely gone. So it seems very silent now these days around shitcoins. Do you think this comes back in the
Yeah,
bull run?
I think it comes back. Yeah, I think it comes back. Because like I said, if nobody pays attention anymore when it's actually dead, then I think that some of the also because of the Clarity Act is not only Bitcoin, right? It's like the digital asset space, it's the tokenization. All those terms are still in all those papers. So I believe there's some big money coming. And I do believe that when Bitcoin wakes up, that a few others are going to wake up as well, and we will still get annoying, annoying narratives that probably takes eyes off the ball in certain groups and certain people that come late to the party. But I also believe, like I said in the beginning of our podcast, all value subjective. I think there's a role also for those things as well. I do believe that people just want to also they actually want to speculate. They actually want to gamble, just like a casino also has customers. I think that the crypto space has it as well. I can only hope for the ones that are in those bags that there actually comes something into fruition that's actually productive and actually is going to play a role in the digital economy. I haven't seen it yet. I hope for the ones that are believing in that stuff that it will happen, and otherwise I hope they make money with it that they can then use to put in Bitcoin.
Yeah, I hope so
Yeah.
too. Really cool.
Yeah.
It was fun having you on, Marc. It's always so interesting to talk about Bitcoin strategy, and I think you're very well reasoned and not extreme on any other in any way. So thank you so much for having this conversation. Before I let you go, where can people find you, the things that you're doing?
Well, yeah, almost everything that I do is in Dutch. So the my business is in Dutch, and it's like it's called Be On Scene. So if you are Dutch or Dutch speaking, or you understand Dutch, then take a look at our website, beonscene.nl. Because there we have like a network of like-minded people that we discuss all this stuff that we basically have discussed today as well. It's really interesting. But you can always find me on LinkedIn. I'm also posting in English. And I'm on X, of course, as well. So my handler is, I guess it would, let's say, is MV Versendaal, just like my name, but you will find me. Just type in my name and you will find me.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Marc, for being on the podcast. And also thank you so much for everyone that is watching and listening for joining us today. As always, I'll be back. This content is for educational and entertainment purposes only and does not constitute financial advice.